All right, you guys, welcome to this week. I'm so excited. I have one of the cutest girls ever, and I'm so excited she said yes. Her name is Karlee. Kind of crazy how I know her. It's like one of my husband's best friend's niece. So kind of crazy. She's the cutest. I've known her since she was like little, because hello, me and Ben have been married for like what, 14 years. And how old are you now, Karlee?
I'm gonna be 21 and
Yeah,
on
so
Sunday. So yeah.
yay, so a really long time, but I am super excited for her to share her story. It's a little different, which I'd like. Yeah, you'll find out why it's a little bit different with dealing with adoption. I'm also trying to get her mom to come on too, because her mom's a fellow adoptee and also mixed in other forms of adoption. So they're wonderful. So I'm going to turn the time over to Karlee, and then, yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, so my name's Karlee, and I might get a little emotional because this really means a lot to me. So my mom had me when I was 21 years, when she was 20, and she was in a relationship with my biological dad, and they found out that they were pregnant, and my biological dad didn't really want a whole lot to do with me. So let me see, I'm trying to think. So he didn't want a whole lot to do with me when they found out that they were pregnant. So he had left, and my mom was stuck dealing with all of this by herself. And then, oh gosh, she just worked really, really hard. And then, I was born, and my biological dad was like, hey, like, so when you putting her up for adoption, like, we don't really, want you, like, I don't want the responsibility. And my mom was like, I can't do that. That's way too hard for me. And so then my mom was like, I'm just gonna keep her, and he can pay child support or whatever. And so she worked as a CNA, and she worked really, really hard, and she worked her butt off, and I would come to grandma's while she worked, and she'd come and pick me up. And I would consider her one of my heroes, because she worked so hard to raise me right and make sure I had a good life. And so she, a few months later, or I was probably about two or three, I'm not really sure. You could probably ask my mom, she knows better. But I was probably 2 or 3, and my biological dad's grandparents reached out to me and my mom and said, hey, we really want to be a part of Karlee's life. Like, is that okay if we, talk about it? And before, they didn't want anything to do with us, and the whole thing was a nightmare. So my mom was like, well, let me think about it. It's kind of hard to decide if you're gonna do that, obviously. And so she brought my grandpa, her dad, and we all went together to a restaurant, and we talked about it, and my mom left with my grandpa, and she's like, so what do you think, to my grandpa? And my grandpa goes, well, I mean, what does it hurt to have Karlee have more people in her life that love and support her? So my grandparents have been in my life on my biological dad's side since I was young. And so I've known about it since I was little, that, that I was half adopted. And so then a few months later, my mom met my adoptive father, and he asked my mom to marry him. and they decided that they were going to get married, and that they wanted to ask my biological dad if he could adopt me, since he had nothing to do with me, and my dad loved me and my mom and wanted us to become a family. And so he signed over his rights, and my dad has been my dad ever since, like 3.5. So yeah, it's really interesting, because I would consider my situation pretty rare, because I'm in touch with his side of the family, but I'm not in touch with him really. And so it's kind of interesting to have that different story. So yeah.
No, that's great. And honestly, like seeing you with your mom and your dad, you would never know. Like it's crazy how that works with some kids, like especially with your dad. Like you just wouldn't. You would never know.
I know. Well, this is like one of my first times like being open about this, because we've just adapted so well as a family that no one really knows. And so when you asked me to do this, I was like, yes, I would love to.
I know, because it's totally different. And that's what I love about it, is it's totally a completely different, form of adoption. Like I have a sister who did the same thing. She married somebody and then ended up adopting his daughter. And I think it's great. It can work that way too. You know what I mean? Like it can totally work that way. So you have absolutely no contact with your biological father then?
No, not really. He started messaging me when I was about 17 and trying to get to know me when I was 17, 18. But I don't know. I'm fine, with my dad. Like he's raised me and has been there through literally everything. And so I don't see a reason to reach out. The only thing that I would reach out for on that side is to know some more like genealogy, like health condition stuff, that kind of thing. But as of right now, I'm pretty good. Like I'll respond every once in a while when he messages me, but it's not like, oh, let's get to know each other. So yeah.
No, well, and it sounds like, so are you in more contact with his side of the family? You said your grandparents, which it sounds like your grandparents could provide a lot of that information too, if you don't want to ever with your dad. So with your biological dad. So
I am in contact with his family. I know my aunts and my uncles, his brothers and sisters. We hang out. I used to go up there for the summer and hang out with them. So like they've been very frequent in my life. They've like always been there as well. And the one thing that my parents had said before they even got married was, if you want to be a part of Karlee's life, you're going to have to treat our future children just like you treat her. So that means, taking them to go do stuff too, not just Karlee, and buy them gifts too for their birthdays, for Christmas, like all of that. So, which is interesting too. So
no, I think that's great, because a family or a couple that I interviewed that have adopted a couple kids, that's kind of how the dynamics, not necessarily that they've like set, but just how it's encompassed with all the different kids that they've adopted. Like all of those grandparents have just kind of taken on all those kids, like, just kind of, they just have done it. So like they were saying, and they're like, our 3 kids have like 6 pairs of grandparents. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like every kid's dream. Like all these different grandparents, grandmas and grandpas are usually like, I know it's not in all cases, but they're all about spoiling and doing and all those kinds of things. So I think that's great. And I think that's just so awesome. So you were still kind of little when, Jake came into the picture, but did they ever talk about like, oh, like he's not your, like, how did the parameters work with that about him? Like not your biological, but I know he is your dad, because I get
yeah. So my grandparents, his mom, my biological dad's mom and dad, gosh, they actually took me and my sister and my mom and dad to Disneyland one year when I was young after they had been married. And I remember my parents taking me and sitting me down like somewhere on the beach and being like, so this is so you were actually like adopted, and these are your actual dad's mom and dad. And so they just kind of explained that to me. And so I've known since I was, I don't know, 5 or 6, they've told me, and they haven't kept it a secret, so it's just been, yeah, I've known for a while. And I do remember one time trying to reach out to my biological dad to ask him some questions that I had when I was like, gosh, 10, I think. And what we received, the answer was no, that he wasn't ready. So I think that's also kind of another reason why, as like, too, I don't really want to get to know him, because he had said no, and that hurt my feelings when I was that age, when I was 10. So I was like, no, I'm okay. Like, when I'm ready, I will definitely reach out. But as of right now, he can wait, just like I've been waiting, it goes both ways. So yeah.
No, and I think the thing I love about it is that Jake has been in, like, you probably don't remember him not being in your life. And so, like I said, like, if people were to see you guys, like, you wouldn't even know the difference. So, I mean, like, your mom has a very extensive background in adoption. So I know it's something she would never keep from you, but I could see how, like, some people would be like, well, it doesn't matter. And so I think it's beautiful, because I know some of those conversations can be hard when people sit down with their kids, especially when they're like the same nationality or whatever. Because with me, it's obviously very, very blatant.
Yeah.
Like, my whole family's white, and then there's me, who's Hispanic. But like, I just love that there's open, honest conversations. And I love that you've had the opportunity to meet biological family members and to stay in contact with them. And it sounds like they have just encompassed you and taken you into their lives. Like, I mean, because you are one of their own, essentially. And so I think that's great, and that they've kept that, and you've got to meet other people. And, I do love that you've come to peace with, now's not the time to maybe engage in a relationship with him. Maybe one day in the future, maybe not, and that's only for you to decide, not anybody else, which I think is beautiful. Like, I love it. And I want to get your mom on too, because I love her story too. Like, she's just, just like, when you started crying about your mom, how much she's your hero, like, oh my gosh, I started crying, because it's just so sweet, because you can just, the love that you have for your mom. And it's just, and I love your mom, man. She's one of the.
I do too. We're very, very close.
Yes, and which is so great. And I absolutely love that. So, so your situation's a little bit different, but would you have any advice for any maybe parents looking to adopt, or any fellow like adoptees? Because I mean, girl, you are a part of the adoptee club with, like, Jake, even though it doesn't even feel like that. So
Half adopted. I would just say maybe love the kids that you want to adopt as your own.
no, and I think that's beautiful. And I feel like most of the world really does, when they do adopt, they do that. Like, unfortunately, there are those weird situations where people do adopt and they get in these really nasty, bad homes. But I feel like for the most part, it's really good. And that's where I love it, because I feel like adoption 100%, it's just love. It's pure love. And that's nothing. That's the only thing I have felt with mine. And I know a lot of other people, and especially a lot of these adoptive parents and even birth moms, it's like solely out of love to have their children be raised by other humans, because they want what's best for their child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have just mad respect for everybody in adoption.
No, this whole journey of being adopted has just been so amazing. Like I've met so many of them, you know, my grandparents' side. When I was younger, I got to meet my great great grandma. So like it's just crazy to, you know, it's just cool to meet so many generations and to have that connection, even though he's not in the picture. So yeah.
And like I said, I think that's beautiful because you still have, you know, that access to it where like it's great. It's great. It's wonderful because I'm not gonna lie, when I've asked the question to my birth mom, like, hey, what about like our, you know, health history and stuff? It's just, well, we're all healthy. Okay, that doesn't help me. And then asking my siblings, they're kind of like, well, you know, we're good right now because they're like, you know, either 10 years older or just like 5 years younger than me is the range of them. So we don't really know, but
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's been good. So
Yeah.
anything else that you want to add?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of anything right now.
No, no, you're good. And seriously, Karlee, thank you for taking some time out of your night and doing this for me. I really
No,
appreciate it because
you're welcome. No problem.
I love how there's so many different walks of adoption. Like it's crazy how it like there's no one right or wrong way to adopt. I absolutely love it. It's just the best.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So
Okay, well, seriously, oh, you're good.
seriously.
You're good. Thank you for joining me. And seriously, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me on here. It's so fun to see you again.
I know.